Welcome, everybody, to another installment from the Carport Compound Studios. My name is Simon Head. I am the director of Subversives, the History of Lowest of the Low. Thank you so much for tuning in on these series of videos. It's much appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube because there'll be more of these coming. Let's talk about Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald is the founding member of the band Junior Gone Wild. Junior Gone Wild is based out of Edmonton. I want to thank Mark for videotaping this for me. This is one of the rare times I didn't go travel to the interview. This one is kind of an interesting one. Mike, a very interesting person, told a very, very cool story about, there's some very cool moments where you can only get if you watch the whole thing. I want to let you know that you can still rent the movie on Apple TV. You can get it on Canada, America, Ireland, UK, Australia. Go to Apple TV. You're part of the Apple TV ecosystem. You go there and rent it. Very cheap, affordable. You can also rent it worldwide on YouTube, which is kind of interesting and cool. The other thing, if you're old, you can go get the Blu-ray and go get it from Unobstructed View. You can buy it on Amazon. Amazon has it for sale in at least, I know for sure, America and Canada. I think it's worldwide too. So go get the thing and then look at it and go, I don't know what to play this in. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in one more time to the third installment from Mike McDonald's full-length interview. This interview was taped on November 3rd, 2021, and it's a kind of a nice look into the greater life. And I really got to thank Mark for doing it because he gave me 3 angles and I only used one. So, thank you so much. Without further ado, here's Mike McDonald from Junior Gone Wild, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, let's talk about your first time meeting the Lowest of the Low.
Believe it or not, the first time I met Lowest of the Low was a couple of years ago. They came through Edmonton and Red Deer and Calgary to do shows, and we played with them for the first time. We'd known about each other almost the whole time we've existed. Just, I guess we never intersected when we were out touring in the 90s and stuff. I'd always been aware of Lowest of the Low, and I've heard they were always aware of us. In fact, a funny story, we were parked in Toronto and Ford Pier was in Junior Gone Wild at the time. And he needed a night off from us. And he went out at night in Toronto to find somewhere to go, something to do. And he found this place and he went in and there was a band there. And all he wanted to do was get away from Junior Gone Wild. But apparently this band started playing Junior Gone Wild songs. And apparently the band was Lowest of the Low. So Ford comes back pissed off because I just wanted to get away from you guys and this stupid shit, but there's this band playing your tunes. Really? And they're not from Ottawa? Holy shit.
Ian, he might move forward a bit. You want to do a focus check on both cameras? You just lean forward. Are you going to stay in that position?
But I don't know.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine? Okay, just check that one.
Okay.
So did we cover the first time you heard Lowest of the Low?
No.
No, we didn't cover that. That's the Scott Wicken story. Okay, so we'll go there. First time you heard Lowest of the Low?
The first time I heard Lowest of the Low, and it's sad to say it was after they broke up, we were too busy playing around. I didn't listen to anybody else's music for quite a long time when Junior Gone Wild was traveling Canada all the time. And but I'd heard of everybody, and I'd heard of Lowest of the Low, of course, but I hadn't heard them until one night. I used to host an open stage in Edmonton at the Rose Bowl, and after that was over, we'd always go over to Scott Wicken's place to continue drinking beer and communing as our community. Anyway, we were there one night and Scott's playing some music and I notice I'm liking every song that I'm hearing. And I finally, after a few songs, I go, who is this anyway? And Scott goes, oh, it's Lowest of the Low. And he hands me the CD cover of Shakespeare My Butt. And I had heard like 3 days before that Lowest of the Low had broken up. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is Lowest of the Low? I had like a million opportunities to go see them or listen to them or whatever, and I never went for it because I was too busy or too wrapped up in myself. And finally I heard it that one night at Scott's place, and it broke my heart to know that the band wasn't around anymore when I And I wished I had listened to them before. But after meeting them and hearing about their mythology and knowing about our mythology, it's probably a good idea we didn't run into each other in the 90s. There would have been a lot of detoxing would have probably had to happen from what I understand.
Nice. Okay, that the Canadian music scene, early 90s, we're skipping that one, right?
Well, I can talk a little bit. I mean, that's why I hadn't heard the lowest of the low, because in the 90s we were traveling all the time. I didn't have a CD player, so I lived with my mom. I didn't actually have my own place when Junior Gone Wild was out and about all the time. And that's why I never was able to listen to other bands unless I saw them live. And yeah, I just don't know why I never saw Lowest of the Low until a couple of years ago. But it was great to finally meet them, though, and we had great shows. We were great two bands to play together. It was lots of fun. I imagine if you're a fan of both bands, that was a really great night.
Cultural shift to the music scene? No, we're not doing that. That's hair metal Svengali thing. We're skipping that. Early days of shows you played in Toronto venues and promoters.
Well, we started, sleeping on couches and things like that. We got to play, I think at the Horseshoe, we got to open for somebody on a Sunday night or something. And then we kept going back, and over the years, eventually we got to play on Monday night. And then a couple of years later, we made it to Tuesday and Wednesday night. And we kept going back, and took about a decade, but we finally headlined the Horseshoe on a Saturday night, which was the goal, I guess, because that's when everybody goes out in Toronto on Saturday night. I don't know. I'm from Edmonton. What do I know? But anyway, it was quite the accomplishment to make it to Saturday, the way we looked at things. But in those times in Toronto, there was things for us to do when we had nothing to do. When Island Records was talking to us, they had us stay in Toronto for 5 weeks, and we had no shows. So we'd go every Monday to Elvis Mondays, and it was like an open stage for bands. And that's where we kind of developed our Toronto following, because you'd get a free beer or something, and we were broke. So let's go to Elvis Mondays. So we'd go down and play on Monday night. We'd play 3 or 4 songs or whatever, but we did it 5 Mondays in a row. And so the next time we played at the Horseshoe, all those people came and saw us play, that saw us at Elvis Mondays. So that's how our following in Toronto started. And then the Less Art More Pop album charted on campus radio, so that's how people knew about it. And that's probably where Ron and them clued into us. I think that's how we were exposed to Eastern Canada. And that's basically our beginnings. And every now and then you'd get good luck, score a festival show or something. But we got into the playing at the Horseshoe in Toronto. Love that place.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool lounge. Cool.
And actually, when we were on tour a couple of years ago, Lowest of the Low played with us at the Horseshoe. After we had played with them here in Edmonton, Red Deer, and Calgary. And then a short while after that, we were in Toronto, so they played with us at the Horseshoe Tavern.
Cool. The myth, yeah, the legendary Horseshoe Tavern. How can we work that in there? How can we work like a line in there where you nah, forget it. Let's move on. How do your bands relate to each other musically?
Oh.
Maybe we can thread the Horseshoe back in there somehow.
Junior Gone Wild, Lowest of the Low have in common sort of the 2-guitar singer-songwriter thing going on. A lot of pop sensibilities. What I love about Lowest of the Low's music, great melodies that stick with you. You humming those tunes on the way out of the venue after the show's over. Lyrics you can chew on for days. Some really clever lines. Like, these are things I think great music should have. Lowest of the Low seems to have these things. Strong melodies, as I said, excellent lyrics. Like Ron's, he should write books, like some of his songs are like movies in your mind, like Klaus Barbie is your neighbor, only weirder, or whatever.
The band's politics and how they might have mirrored your band's politics or not.
Politics, I can't comment on. I know the individuals in all in the both bands have their opinions on things. I've never seen Lowest to the Low brandish a specific political opinion as a group. I think Ron leaves that to, if he wants to address that, I believe he would do it in his songs. That's what I think he would do. That's what he's really good at. Although he's a smart man and talks well, so other musicians have gone into politics. I don't see it for a guy like me, but maybe a guy like Ron, perhaps, if he was inspired enough to do so. I think he could. He's got the wits. He seems to have a passion for things. I mean, you can't write unforgettable songs if you don't have passion. And Lowest to the Low have unforgettable songs.
Keep your chin a little bit up so I can see your eyes a bit more. Ron's songwriting then and now.
I'll be honest with you. I've only ever really listened to Shakespeare My Butt. I don't want to hear anything else in case it's not as good. Sorry. But those, Shakespeare My Butt is got to be one of the greatest Canadian records ever made in the history of Canadian music. Like, I like that record that much. I owe it to the band to listen to the rest of their stuff, though, that's for sure.
That's awesome. That worked really well. Okay, so Shakespeare comes out. What's the next line after that? What's the next point? So what do you, I guess you don't really have, like, I guess they want you to put it in historical context. Is that the Scott Wicken?
Yeah, well, I wasn't a witness to Shakespeare My Butt coming out. I got into it later. Like, I'm late to the party, man. And it's one of those things, I thought I was there at the beginning, but I wasn't. I was somewhere else. And everyone else thought I was there too, but I wasn't. I was somewhere else, man. I was at another party.
Oh, really? Your insights on the magic of the low. You kind of addressed that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a kind of music that you can, and I don't want to cheapen it by saying party to, but you can have a good time to it, but it's also useful for solitary moments. I mean, there's a lot to chew on. There's a lot to think about in some of them songs. I mean, they're about real things that everybody can relate to in most cases. And, read Henry Miller and wander around, like everybody can relate to stuff like that, and it'll mean something else to each different person. But that's what immortal music is, right? I think, and Shakespeare My Butt, the song, and there's no reason for me to believe their other material isn't the same. It's kind of timeless. Like in 20 years, Shakespeare My Butt's still going to be an amazing record. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. That's an immutable fact.
The good, and this is going to be a fun one. The good and bad of a band staying in Canada.
Well, some bands don't have any fucking choice, right? But I'm offended by the notion that it might be bad to be a band in Canada. I'm in a band in Canada, and I think it's fucking great. It's where I'm from. It's my home. These are the people I write my songs for and who I play them to. And, who needs the United States? Canada's got Lowest to the Low, Junior Gone Wild. We're rocking.
That's awesome. Hallucigenia comes out on a major label. Scratch that one altogether.
Yeah.
Okay. Their fear of selling out and your reflections. That was another kind of wishy-washy one.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Fear of selling out. Well, it's a fine line, you know. You want to succeed in a business sense. I think you could do it without tailoring your stuff specifically for sales. And I don't think a band like Lowest of the Low does that necessarily. They're lucky that a lot of people like what they do and they don't have to change. I don't know if I understand the idea behind the question. Fear of selling out. I don't know if you can be afraid of it. If you're going to sell out, you're going to sell out. If you're not going to sell out, you're not going to sell. I don't think fear comes into it. You either are going to sell out or you're not. It's not like someone can force you to sell out. You have to say yes and sign on the paper. And if you don't say yes and don't sign the paper, then you didn't sell out. I don't know. Fear has nothing to do with it. You either have integrity or you don't.
The breakup. Any reflections?
Well, I was so sad when I found out that they were a really great band after they broke up.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ron's solo projects.
I skip.
Skip it. Okay, the reunion. So I think this is a good way to parallel yours and their reunion. Yeah, like weave those stories together somehow, and then like how you reconnected. You guys, I mean, you reconnected after both of your reunions, right?
Yeah, both bands had broken up for a long time and then got back together, then finally met each other. I think, yeah, well, they probably had a similar experience to us. Their fans were probably glad that they were back. And they worked, they rehearsed, they played well, like they were great band. Technically, they did their songs well. So if you liked their songs, you didn't have any choice but to like what they're doing now because they're doing it well. And same with us. When we got back together, our people seemed happy that we were back together. So the prevailing feelings at our shows are very positive and often sentimental, because for some reason these songs mean a lot to people. And I can say, yeah, some Lowest of the Low songs mean an awful lot to me. I love singing them to myself or thinking about them. Like after even hearing them a million times, there's still other things to glean.
The last 2 points are new albums and new beginnings in the early 2000s. And then the final one is legacy of Lowest of the Low. Are there any specific songs off of Shakespeare in My Butt that like resonate with you?
The Hand of Magdalena. The Hand of Magdalena is an amazing song. It's like a Hemingway story. It's kind of laid out. It's abbreviated because it's in verse, but the story's there. Like there's no gaps you need filled in. It's kind of there in 3 verses or something. That's really hard to do. So Ron Hawkins is a bit of a genius at that sort of thing, you know. And it's just a great song melodically. It draws emotion out of you and stuff.